Hey everyone, I'm Andy Petronic, and this is the Whole Life Challenge podcast. It's the place we connect with extraordinary people, ones who think differently, who have risen to the top of their field, who have vast knowledge, experience, and insights to share, as well as incredible stories to tell. They are also the ones who have figured out a way to take their life's experience and turn it into something that truly makes a difference in the world for others. These are their stories. Hey gang, welcome back. This is Andy Petronic. Man, fresh new music, fresh new introduction, fresh new picture. If you haven't been to our podcast page yet on the website, wholelifechallenge.com/podcast, there's a fresh new picture up, like a new header. There's a new icon for the podcast in iTunes. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. It's got my picture in it. Today's episode is number 118. And my guest today is Dr. Anthony Gustin. He is a chiropractor, but he's way more than just a chiropractor. He's young, but he's old. He's experienced beyond his years. He learned firsthand the effects of poor nutrition and not taking responsibility and not taking care for himself. And then he learned firsthand what can happen when you do. What can happen when you do take full responsibility for your health and well-being. And he tells his story from a sick, overweight, ridden with acne kid with joint pains and generally unhealthy to today where he's a thriving young entrepreneur. He's actually moved out of treating patients in the chiropractic world, and he runs two companies. One is called Perfect Keto, and the other is called Equip Foods. And they are supplement companies. Here's another really cool thing he did just for the Whole Life podcast listeners. If you've ever wanted to try a product, an exogenous ketone, if you've ever wanted to experiment with going into ketosis, and perhaps wanted to find out what it feels like to get energy from ketones, you don't have to go through a 2 to 4 week period of changing your diet and getting into ketosis. You can actually try it out with exogenous ketones. And his product from Perfect Keto is the way to do that. He's got a link that you follow, and the link, you're going to get a 15% discount. So you follow the link bit.ly, bit.ly /WLC perfect keto end. Not .com. bit.ly /WLC perfect keto. And use the coupon code when you check out in all caps, Whole Life Challenge with no spaces. That'll give you 15% off. So, I know you don't know Dr. Gustin yet. You will very shortly. He's an awesome guy who really has the best interests of the health and well-being of the world in mind in everything that he does. He's an open book and really fun person to talk with on the podcast. Okay, switching gears. That's coming up in about, 2 minutes. Whenever I finish this intro, I want to switch gears and get to my fan of the week. I've got a really long, as you guys know, if you've been listening, I've been asking you to go to iTunes and leave a review, write a review of the podcast. I can't continue to bring you fantastic guests from around the world without the podcast growing. And the best way to grow the podcast, because whether you like it or not, Apple and iTunes has 60 to 70% of the podcast listening world. So reviews in iTunes really mean a lot. And written reviews, not just ratings. I mean, it's fine if you want to go in and give me a 5-star rating. That's simple. But writing a review really helps a ton. And I've been picking a person every week to be the fan of the week. And this week it is someone named Cultivating Pathways. And this is a little bit long, but I'm going to read the whole thing. I've been listening to the podcast since my first challenge in January of this year. The breadth and depth of guests that Andy brings and the candid and authentic interview style has had a tremendous impact in this short period of time. I've gone back and re-listened and shared with friends and colleagues some episodes that were really compelling. Parentheses, Kobe Kozlowski and Richard Janes have been repeat listens, and I still learn something new each time. Unparentheses. I've been compelled to integrate new practices into my life that have really made a difference. Parentheses, bullet journaling and decluttering. Most importantly, I appreciate the consistent message that perfection is not the goal and that everyone's journey is unique. Thanks to Andy, I'm introduced to high performers at the top of their game across a diverse array of fields and learn from each of them. While no one loves commuting, this series has made time in the car, plane, or train an enriching and enlightening experience. So there you have it. That is an incredible recommendation, endorsement. Thank you so much from Cultivating Pathways. That's way above and beyond. Most of people's write-ups have been, one or two sentences, which I appreciate fully also. So I don't think you have to write a book to leave these. So go into iTunes, and if you do, I will hopefully pick yours and read you out, call you out as a fan of the week. And by the way, if you're listening, let me know, and I'll send you a t-shirt, a Whole Life Challenge t-shirt, which is available. A lot of people don't know we have a store on our website, but we do. And I will send you a free Whole Life Challenge t-shirt. So let me know. Send an email to info@wholelifechallenge.com, Cultivating Pathways, and claim your prize. So let's see. As always, this show is still sponsored by only the Whole Life Challenge. And the Whole Life Challenge the next one begins on January 20th. So mark your calendars. I know it's early in December, but if you know you're going to do it, you might as well go register now. And we'll get more into those details later. Don't forget that the full show notes of this episode are available at wholelifechallenge.com/podcast. So links and the names of the people that we talked about, books, resources. We do a pretty extensive job of doing a write-up on there. So let's get on with the episode, shall we? Dr. Anthony Gustin, welcome to the podcast. Dr. Anthony Gustin, welcome to the Whole Life Podcast.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
It's great. I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody on a live phone call, Zoom chat, Skype from Argentina. So I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about it. It's funny is there's nothing different about the screen. There's nothing different about your voice. There's nothing different about anything. I wouldn't have any idea where the heck you are. You could be in Antarctica.
Magic of the internet.
Yeah, it is.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is totally like magic. So it's funny because we've had a person participate in the Whole Life Challenge on every continent except Antarctica. So I'm really hoping that we can get the Whole Life Challenge going with some forward
researcher that's down
research
there?
base, or something.
does anyone actually live there?
I don't. God, I don't think so.
Are there any residents there? Like, are there any addresses? Can I? We should see if we've ever shipped anything down there.
If there's a listener of the Whole Life Challenge podcast that wants to volunteer to go down there for 6 weeks and do the Whole Life Challenge, it's only 6 weeks.
Are you going to include igloo building materials and everything, or what?
I don't know about that. I don't know.
I was thinking of going down there just so I could hit all 7 continents, but I don't have the time.
You could climb the highest peak down there too if you want. If you're at it, it's not very high. It's kind of low, flat.
15 feet.
Well, it's higher than that, but it's not. Like in terms of the 7 summits, the highest point on every continent. It's one of the easy ones, except it's kind of cold. So
I have no desire for that. I'll leave that to the adventurous souls out there.
I saw a penguin documentary many years ago, and they're so cute little creatures. But man, the life that those guys go through in protecting the egg, and it's the males that are the female just basically hatches the egg, but the male has to protect the egg as it develops over the course of like a year, and it's hell. It's total.
It's like push it around and like do all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And they cover it up and they sit, they all huddle together in these big things, but they don't ever lie down. They just stand up. So they're these huge packs of penguins who are sitting there, and they're not sitting, they're standing on their egg, and they're, keeping it from freezing. And
then the females just chill and eat fish or what?
Yeah.
Slide around their bellies.
I don't really remember what the female's doing. I don't remember that part of the story. I was just so taken with the fact that the males have to do all this freaking work. That's a lot of work. But
biology demands it, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, that's all well and good, but
good intro.
You're not on the podcast to talk about penguins. No, we met at PaleoFX last year, and we were, I was in the market to learn more about keto. Not learn more about keto, because I'd known about keto for a long time, but I was in the market for considering actually going into ketosis. And I just started my first ketogenic experiment. I had literally 3 days before PaleoFX, God, maybe it was actually the day that PaleoFX started, was my first day in nutritional. Well, I probably wasn't in nutritional ketosis yet, but it was my first day of, eliminating all the carbs and going into full fat burning mode.
I didn't know that was your first day.
Yeah.
You're such a newbie.
I was a brand newbie. I wasn't a newbie. So, Todd White from Dry Farm Wines?
Yeah. Awesome
so
guy.
Todd and I had met the year before at PaleoFX, and he basically, he's just in terms of keto, he's like a walking billboard for keto. Like, you got to go keto. It's the easiest thing in the world. I don't know why everybody's not keto. Like, you're a moron or you're lazy if you think you can't do it, because it's really, really easy. And he had tried to convince me to do it a year before, and I was too much of a, I was just too fixed in my way of thinking to even want to try, And
he's pretty tenacious. I'm surprised it took him a year to get you.
It took him a little while. I mean, he sent me all these materials, and you got to buy the test kit, and here's where you buy it from, and here's, it just took me a while to get my head around it, and then I did, and man, it's been really been
since May. How's it been going?
Since May. It's been good. Like we were talking before I started the podcast, I experimented with exogenous ketones. Really, I've never been a big supplement person. I have this love-hate relationship with all supplements, with vitamins. I go through periods of, boy, I really need to take supplements. And then I go through other periods of, are these supplements really doing anything? And so I like, especially with like protein powders, and I don't do them. I get my protein from eggs or from, meat or chicken or fish so I'm not a natural, like, regular consumer of exogenous things, of supplements and powders and stuff. And so the experiment for me was more about, shifting my habits and shifting my dietary habits and being willing to take on, eat more fat and eat less carbs, and like get rid of the carbs that I'm super addicted to, like pizza and ice cream. And that was really hard.
Yeah.
And I, at the same time, I started to do an intermittent fasting thing. So I eliminated my breakfast, and I immediately started to wonder, because I was fine. I didn't have there was no negative impact. I continued drinking coffee with butter and MCT oil, but eliminated all the food, and I started thinking, what was I doing with all this extra food? Why, how am I functioning? I didn't lose a lot of weight. I lost like 5 pounds. And I still have that same question. Like, where was all this going? Like, was it all just a complete waste of, am I just, maybe it was, maybe it is, maybe it was, I don't know, but it's been part of the experiment for me, and it's going great. It's going really well.
Yeah, I think you pointed out a really good thing here, which is that to actually have the benefits of a ketogenic diet, you need to actually do it. You can't just take a magic pill.
Right.
And like you said before, I'm actually not a big fan of supplements either, which is kind of silly coming from a guy who owns 4 different supplement companies. but like I don't think people need to have supplements either. Like, they are named aptly, and people use them as if they were called replacements. They are not. So they're supplements for a reason. They supplement a proper lifestyle and diet. And so, yes, you can get some targeted benefits out of using any type of supplements, in my opinion. So, for instance, one of the ones that I always take, just because I'm not getting a lot, especially when I'm traveling like I have been so crazy, is collagen protein. Mm-hmm. So that's one that I always buffer. I always feel way better. I'm doing gymnastics work right now. And
cool. Do you follow like an online program? Do you do GMB or gymnastic bodies?
No, my friend who's making a program with one of my other friends, they're both chiropractors. One's called, his name is Dr. Wes Hendricks, and he's making a program with the Movement Fix, Dr. Ryan DeBell. And he's been programming for me as my standards are pretty strict as a chiropractor myself.
Yep.
Anyways, that's a lot of demand for soft tissue growth. That's basically training your soft tissues and your joint surfaces and tendons and ligaments and all this type of stuff. And so collagen for me is super huge, and I don't get a lot of high quality stuff when I'm in a place like Argentina, or I mean, even Australia was kind of hard, and I'm on the road all the time. So for instance, for me, it supplements my otherwise really good lifestyle. Yep. I think exogenous ketones are another one of these things where, I can use it like I did earlier today as a kind of a mental boost, but to get the full benefits of a ketogenic diet and to actually experience it, you need to actually do it. And so this is the thing too, where people think they can just take all this magic powder and it will give them all these magic results.
Yeah,
I wish that were the case. It would make my life way easier.
Yeah.
So when people get all frustrated that they're not losing all this weight, or they're not getting all this inflammation reduction, or having effortless hunger control, all these things, that I wouldn't have to be like, oh well, turns out you need to actually do some work here. Like you said, it can be tough at first when you're making these huge life changes. Not only is it just ingrained in you as actual addiction to carbohydrates, but a lot of it is just patterns that you have to break, habit loops you have to recreate. And so instead of like making breakfast like this, you have to make all these decisions. And so one of the things when I've been traveling too is like, I know now which decisions I need to make immediately when I land somewhere new that will make the rest of my trip better. Okay,
what do you do?
So for instance, I have, and I'm starting to get some help with this with one of my assistants, but basically I want to stay in an Airbnb that has laundry and an oven close to somewhere that also has a gym with open gym and a grocery store that sells vegetables. And so places like in Argentina, that's actually a tricky thing to get all that stuff. Also, if that can be close to, for instance, a WeWork, which I'm at right now recording, another huge bonus.
Right.
And so that is kind of the big three that I look for as far as gym, grocery store, place to work, and then the actual place that I'm staying, somewhere that has laundry, because I'm usually here or somewhere else like a couple weeks at a time. And so not having to worry about that, having to be able to have that there is critical as well. And so the sooner you can just make the big choices about what's going on, whether that's lifestyle or nutrition, the easier that they're going to be.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's one of the things I always tell people in normal life, like not when they're traveling. Like the more you can set yourself up to not have to make decisions, to not be prepared for the things that are going to happen in your day. Like when that moment comes when you haven't brought lunch with you, you're at work and there's nobody to go to lunch with. There's no business lunch you have. And you're like, I'm hungry and I want to eat. And you're like, where do I go? And you haven't thought through the options for where are the places around you. You haven't done the research, and you haven't figured out where are the places around you that have food that you're willing to eat. That is it Whole Foods? Is it restaurants that have salad bars? Is it and then you're stuck with, well, you got to do the research then or the work then, and very often you don't have the time to do that. So you just go to the same crappy place you've always been going, like Jersey Mike's, to grab a sandwich, and you get those results from that.
And that's why it's super tough when you are switching to a different type of lifestyle or eating, where every time now it's like, okay, well, usually I would have sweet potatoes or rice or whatever kind of carb with this meal. And then every decision has to be like, okay, shit, well, now I have to replace this with something else, and I can't have as much protein. Well, now what do I do? And so every meal you're making a new decision. Yeah. That's the hardest thing to change, in my opinion. Not necessarily the pure addiction to certain foods or cravings. I think when people actually just replace what they usually have with new things that they like as well, then it's completely fine. Yeah. But it's all of those decisions over and over and over again. I mean, if you look at the average person's meals of how many like different meals they prepare for themselves or actually get out at a restaurant, it's not that many. Like maybe 15 to 20 of things that they like. At a Thai place, they're going to have the dish they like it. When they cook something and then they cook a piece of steak, it's going to be a certain one, and they usually have a certain side. And so just making those changes and replacements and finding ones that you really like and creating those different habit loops, I think is the biggest battle that people have to go through.
Yep.
And so you have to go through that transition to be able to enjoy all the benefits of that lifestyle. And so if you're looking for a ketogenic lifestyle for whatever reason, taking a powder is not going to help that. It's all those little steps and all those new habit loops that create something completely different.
How did you get into this? I mean, were you an early adopter in the keto world? And if so, why? And how did you go from being a full-time successful chiropractor to really not really practicing chiropractic anymore, but changing people's lives in other ways?
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit longer of a story, so I'm glad we have some time. But I've been into nutrition for a very long time. I was super overweight and unhealthy when I was younger. And then when I started getting into a lot of science classes in fifth, sixth, seventh grade or so, I started really diving deep into nutrition. I thought it was fascinating that I could change all of the negative things I had about myself at the time with nutrition. And so I've been into that my whole life. That kind of compounded as I went through. And I was actually doing ketosis in with some of my friends in undergrad in 2007, 2008.
Wow.
It wasn't really called ketosis then, but we were essentially not eating any carbs and limiting protein because we knew that would switch to a fat burning state. And so essentially at that point, it was essentially for us to get ripped in the summertime. Obviously, undergrads is what guys do then. So complete vanity at that point. Like all the research wasn't out as far as all the positive mechanisms that there are now. But yeah, I was in it back then. Knew it was a tool for that.
Well, can I interrupt 1 second? I want, of course, going back to when you were a I don't know. Is it too much to say that you were a fat kid like growing up?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I have photos to prove it.
What was that like, and how did your parents help you see a different way? Did you kind of like what was the impetus for change? And how did you what happened?
So to provide more context on that, this is a small town in Minnesota, like 50 minutes outside of Twin Cities. And so nutrition and education there is just non-existent.
Right.
And so the type of food choices, especially when I was growing up, like now it's a little bit better, not great still. Every time I go home, it's kind of sad actually. But that, like, my parents weren't helping because they had no idea. They had no perspective.
Right.
And so, I mean, all they grew up in farms. All my extended family is still on farms, and it's just a very like no color in anything type of nutrition, and a lot of freshly baked white bread and all those different things. And then so, I mean, it was still kind of a change going through when I thought I was eating healthy, which we can get to later. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of. It sucks being the overweight kid when everybody else is kind of fit and lean and like playing all the sports they want, and you're getting made fun of, or let's say embarrassed to take your shirt off when it's like shirts for skins in basketball or whatever. So I mean, it was just the culmination of that, and then like I said, me learning about science and biology, and like, oh man, like I can actually take control of this. Like this isn't something that I just have to be, because a lot of people in my family were overweight, and this is like, oh well, yeah, this is like this is a genetic thing. This is how it's going to be. And then when I actually found out like to take control of it and have power over it, it kind of just opened up this floodgates of me learning about nutrition.
And that was in like 9th grade, 8th grade?
Yeah, kind of around that junior high times when I started doing that. And then, the next 3, 4, 5 years were about, eating the whole grain pasta and the whole grain bread and thinking that was a healthy choice.
How did you have the courage to, I mean, that really fascinates me that, that's pretty unique. I mean, I think that a kid is willing to take that kind of responsibility in their life and buck the trend, buck the flow in their family, buck the flow in with their friends and their community. Yeah. Like you're not doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I was bringing bagged lunches to school every day and like eating whole wheat sandwiches with like lean turkey breast and all that stuff. Again, I thought it was healthy at the time, but I mean, these are the things where, and then everybody else was like eating like pizza and chips at lunch and like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what?
And were you making the lunches yourself?
Yeah, I was packing this stuff every day. I remember like it was like 2 sandwiches, and then I had like all these vegetables that I would take with, and I would put it in this fridge because we couldn't have fridges there. So I actually talked to one of my teachers, and he had like a lounge fridge that he let me keep my lunch in because my lunch was so big that I needed to actually put it in a fridge and couldn't just keep it like in a cooler.
Yep.
And so that was a whole thing. But yeah, I mean, that was something that, it's, and just like with any of this stuff, learning is such an evolution. And I was just lucky to be on that path early on when I was younger and be able to build on it now.
I mean, who does that? I mean, I think back to when I was in high school or junior high school, there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that I would have been making my own lunches and eating I mean,
yeah, but you were the fit dude, weren't you?
I wasn't fit. No, I was a musician.
Oh, really?
Well, not that musicians can't be fit, but I was not an athlete at all. In fact, I got cut from, I tried to play on the basketball team when I was in 7th grade and was the first kid cut. That was very traumatic. And then I tried to play soccer. I tried to keep up with my buddies who were all varsity soccer players and I didn't make the varsity team. I was in 9th grade. They all made the varsity team in 9th grade. And I didn't. And not only that, I sat the bench on JV, and then I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this.
So, well, it seems like things have worked out so far, huh?
Yeah, they changed course a little bit, bit later on. But no, that's really amazing that you found that, kind of courage inside yourself to do that. That's really cool.
Well, it was to me the only choice, and I kind of felt like this. My whole life is like, if I want change, I'm the one responsible for it, and I shouldn't be dependent on anybody else for that. And I think my parents, that is the thing that they taught me. So whether then or not, like I was relying on them for direct nutritional advice.
Yeah,
they taught me the lessons of, if I want something, I'm the one who's responsible for it. And so if I don't want to be unhealthy, I'm the one that needs to be taking control of that and moving forward and learning what I need to learn and doing what I need to do. Yeah. To have that action how I want it.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing
I guess
lesson.
They did teach me about nutrition.
Yeah, it's an amazing lesson to learn because I think about that now. It's funny because I was just talking to my wife this morning about she wakes up regularly with shoulder pain and these various pains and she also has a hard time sleeping. She's got a mind that just goes and goes and goes and goes. And she doesn't I try to encourage her to if you want that to change, you're going to have to actually be willing to do something different than what you're used to doing to see if you can make a change. Thinking about it is not going to make it better, and wishing it were different is not going to make it better. And, I can't, there's nothing I can do, and it's fine. I just have to love her in spite of her complaints about I didn't get any sleep and my shoulder hurts. And, but I keep encouraging her, like, you may want to try something different, and it's not going to feel natural or normal. And I just feel like that the lessons you got as a kid are so valuable for the rest of your life. I mean, like, you don't need anything else, really. I mean, it's like an operating system you've got.
Yeah, which is nice. Like, my parents didn't really give me anything when I was younger, which is good. And it was like you want that thing, go work for it, or like, here, you can do this work around the house. And then you can have it, not just like, well, here's this thing, and this is what you get now. And so like, very, very grateful for just that being my kind of, like you said, operating system that has driven me through everything that I've done since then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's definitely, it wasn't even, I don't think it was a courage or anything else like that. It was just a very clear path. Like, do I want to stay unhealthy and be embarrassed about all this stuff and have an awful life, or do I want a better life? And so I chose one option. It just seemed very clear to me. And so I just kept pursuing that.
And it's nice today. And you grew up, I grew up in the age when there was no information available. So it would have been hard for me to do what you did, I think. I mean, you had a computer. I'm assuming you had computer access, like you could
but things. there wasn't much stuff on the, 'cause I remember like when I was around this age, I'm 29 now. So it was like maybe like dial up and like
AOL
first iteration. Yeah. Like
right.
I was using the internet to like chat on AIM with my friends and play video games and stuff. Like I wasn't looking at nutrition stuff on there. It was more so textbooks and science class and figuring that system out.
Yep.
More so than it was internet. I mean, now the resources are insane.
Right.
I mean, with that does come a lot of confusion though. There's so much conflicting information now.
There's so much.
Where it's almost like, Netflix effect where there's too many too many options.
Yep.
And so what happens is people just get confused and don't take any action. And so, there's pluses and minuses for sure.
So, okay. So you made it through high school and you went to college, you're getting ripped in the summer, you're ketogenic without calling it ketogenic. You're kind of following an Atkins thing, kind of low carb.
Yeah, I would say kind of it was no carb, not low carb, but no carb.
No carb.
Wow. Actually, now that I think about it, we were doing like some pretty serious intermittent fasting as well. So we'd do there'd be times where we'd be through like 3 days in a row. We would do it was like avocados and protein shake, and that was it. Like one time a day for like 3 days at a time.
What was in the protein shake?
It was just general whey, I think. It's general whey protein.
Water and whey protein?
Yeah. Now I do things way differently. Obviously,
yeah.
Evolution. And like hopefully in 10 years, I'm doing different stuff than I am now.
Sure, right.
But yeah,
don't worry,
I'm not recommending anybody do this. This is just when I was an undergrad.
Right.
it was effective for fat loss for a 19-year-old kid. But yeah, so we were doing it back then. And this is kind of the time when I went through all this stuff. Like shortly after that, I was like, oh, wait. Because I still had a lot of acne now. That was like one of the last health things that I kind of figured out that I wanted to really get over. I was like, okay, looking good physically, like fixed all that. Energy levels are good, kind of up and down throughout the day. But if I eat all day, it's all good. And then, but this acne, and then once I figured out when I removed things like wheat and just ate avocado and protein shakes or just protein shakes at some points, my acne would completely clear up.
Wow.
And so I started noticing a pattern. And then that's when I started discovering things like whole foods diet or like a paleo diet, which was for me like the next huge step as far as my own nutrition and health went. And so once I started removing all that stuff, energy levels completely stabilized, and then acne just completely went away.
Wow.
It wasn't until later, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So one of the labs that I run and most of my patients that I work with for gut health is basically a test. There's in wheat, there are about 19 different proteins that can affect you in different ways. And so to test for celiac and Crohn's, what they do is they look for 2 of these proteins. Most MDs do. Just how they're trained, and there's way more than that. And so I was only reactive to one of them, and that is called tissue transglutaminase 4. And what basically happens is when I eat wheat, that's expressed in my body, and so it disrupts that protein, and that is found in the skin. And so that means whenever I eat wheat, and I can correlate this now. Whenever I have like a piece of bread, 2 days later I get acne.
Wow.
And so that's the only way wheat affects me, but everyone's completely different on how that is. And so it's kind of nice to have some backup evidence on that from, when I was 20 years old, 19 years old, and be like, oh, I should probably stop eating this stuff because I see that it causes me to have acne. But then I can see later on with testing that, oh, it literally disrupts this protein that's expressed in my skin, and therefore it gives me acne. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess my intuition was right at this point.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was we just dabbled with that more so. I mean, I was eating at that point as well when I was not trying to lose fat. A lot of way too much protein, and this is one of the things that I think in the last 2 years I've really ratcheted down on. But it was, off season you got to bulk up and then you cut down and all this stuff. I'm sure you've gone through this phase as well.
Absolutely,
yeah. It was gaining tons of weight, eating tons of carbs, just eating as much food as humanly possible. And with that, I think food quality sometimes just has to suffer, especially when you're a college kid. Like you can't afford food,
right? And
so I was eating, stuff that was probably a little inflammatory. But again, next step was then I would say like grad school was all about hardcore
in undergrad. Were you what was your major? What were you?
Biology.
Okay.
So yeah, when I was in like leaving high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do from. I had no idea I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but from what I wanted to do through school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, which is to be a chiropractor. So another thing that my dad told me, obviously work to get what you want, but don't work for anyone else is another thing that he told me. And so that combined with me then like working through my own stuff and like, wow, okay, this is what you can do in healthcare. I was fascinated with sports. And so I want to do kind of like a sports med plus nutrition hybrid working in healthcare and work for myself. And so the only thing that really fit that Venn diagram is actually being a chiropractor. And so that was what I wanted to do. And so I left high school essentially on that path. And
so biology was the closest.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just pre-med type of track, same exact thing as med school. And so went to University of Wisconsin, got that done, and then went to Oregon for grad school.
And grad school was chiropractic grad school, or
doctorate of chiropractic, and then master's in sports rehab as well. So we did that as a concurrent program. Yeah, and that phase was diving way deeper into graduate level science classes, obviously, and really honing in on kind of a paleo-ish diet, really focusing hard on that. Which again, it was still broke, still like not that easy to do when you don't have like access and means to buy all the fresh stuff that everybody recommends on a paleo diet.
Yep.
And so, it's easier for me now to work with people and kind of tailor it down and be like, okay, I understand what situation you're in. Like there wasn't a time where I could just go to Whole Foods and buy everything I wanted. Either like I know completely what that's like. Here's the things you need to focus on, and here's the things you need to focus on removing. So that was kind of that phase, which was going through that. Still at that point, I think eating since being overweight when I was younger, eating too many carbs now, it doesn't matter if they're sweet potatoes or whatever the hell I eat. I am pretty messed up from an insulin standpoint, I would say, like way better than I was, but like I will gain fat pretty easily. I don't have energy issues no matter what type of carbs I eat. So then that was kind of a slow transition to just going pretty low carb. Then kind of felt some energy problems and started toying when I got out of grad school with doing primarily nutritional ketosis, then pulling out of it once every month, couple of months or whatever, just as I see fit, and have been kind of in that phase since that point. And which is for me, again, based upon my history of having obvious metabolic damage when I was younger, feel way better. So whereas I know my friends who, like, if they don't have carbs, super lean people have been all their life. If they don't have carbs, then they feel like trash and have no energy, and like ketogenic diet is not great for them, which is completely fine. Like I don't think it's a magic pill for everyone, for every situation either. Like people have so much stuff that, like, based upon their current lifestyle, their previous either also gut dysfunction and gut problems and gut health for, their whole life, based upon like all things that they're currently doing or eating. Like people have such different demands and different genetics and different backgrounds that you just need to test this stuff and see what works for you. If it works, great, keep doing it and keep learning. And if it doesn't, then try something else. Yeah, right. That does. And so that's where I never like kind of all or nothing approaches with nutrition. Yeah. And I think that it's always has to be an individual quest that people can, and people can definitely help. The information that people have on the internet now and the access they have to is like, you can definitely do it way quicker than you could before with all the information out there, but you got to do the work, and you got to test yourself and see what works for you. High carb does not work for me. High carb works for some other people. Like low carb doesn't work for other people. And so you said, like, no one's going to be able to tell you, if you want high energy, for instance, eat this way, then you do it, and then you're pissed because it doesn't work. Well, you're different than everybody else. And so I'm really always hesitant to make claims on, like, if you have this, nutritional lifestyle, you will have these benefits, because everyone's such an individual. And so, like, for instance, we have this Facebook group, and I always get hit up for questions all the time because I'm posting all this stuff, and I'm pretty available to all the people who support us. But people ask a health question, and my answer is always, it depends. Yep. Always. Yep. And like, well, how many grams of fat should I eat? I'm like, well, I mean, it depends. Like, what's your goal? What's your previous history? Have you tried this before? How did you feel? Like, what were your results? Yep. And people just want this cookie cutter answer in a simple fashion, but human body is very, very individual. And so when you don't treat it like that, you're not going to get individual results.
Has nutrition always been a center point of your chiropractic practice?
No, when I first got out of school, I focused primarily on sports medicine. And so what happened is I was dealing with people in I moved to San Francisco right after I was in school. And
why San Francisco? What was magic?
Yeah, I wanted to stay on the West Coast, and didn't didn't like the Pacific Northwest weather and wasn't a huge fan of Southern California. I am now, so don't jump at me. I actually think I might move to Venice soon. But
I'd rather you stay away because I don't want more people here. so it's so good. And, don't come. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So the last major city that was left that I really liked was San Francisco, and so I had a good opportunity to join on with another chiropractor there that I had known for a little while, and so him and I joined up and grew one location to 6 sports med based chiropractic clinics in the Bay Area. And through that, it was, just getting people back ready to play and treating athletes and working with pro athletes was kind of a big thing that I wanted to do since I was young. Yeah. So once we got to that point and I had kind of figured out mostly how to get people better, I was like, okay, I can just delegate all this stuff and teach other chiropractors how to do this. But now I want to work a little bit more in depth with people. And so I switched about midway through, this is like maybe 2.5 years ago, to doing more functional medicine work. And so dealing with like ordering all the labs, interpreting them, and working with nutrition and supplements and more natural approaches. And obviously as well in conjunction with MDs, if people do need prescriptions, like I don't think pharmaceutical drugs are bad in all cases.
Yep.
And so just working on that angle and getting way better at that was kind of the next shift I had. And so it was kind of a staged approach. And so out of school, about 2 years, both growing businesses and learning about that, as well as like perfecting my approach to sports medicine, and then transitioning from that to kind of a nutrition-based functional medicine approach.
What was the what would you say was your chiropractic philosophy? Because I know chiropractic is a very misunderstood, or it's either misunderstood or not. Everybody has their own idea what the hell chiropractic is. Yeah,
which is the good and bad part of Kairos.
Right.
And so because you can do a little bit of anything, and because the history of the profession is based on something that's, I think, very archaic, that some people still believe in, it can be very, so you can meet one chiropractor that'll tell you one thing and another one will tell you something completely different.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a very confused profession right now. My philosophy, it differs from about 90%, I would say, of Kairos currently, which is that their job is to put your bones in another place. Uh-huh. I just don't think that that's the case. If that was the case, you would fall down and your bones would all shift out of place and you'd be a big bag of bones and you won't be able to stand up again. Like, I can't with my hand put enough force through your joint to put it from one location to another. It's just like not the way joint capsules are formed and connective tissue is formed. And so I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail, as I usually do whenever I say something like this. But it's just, I feel like I understand human anatomy very, very well. I had to cut through joints and joint capsules in an anatomy lab with multiple scalpels because they would break. There's no way with my fingers through soft tissue that has reactive muscles to stabilize joints that I would ever move a joint.
So what's the popping and cracking I hear when a joint moves? Is that not a joint moving?
No, it's not a joint moving. So what happens is you have gas buildup in what's called synovial fluid in between your joints.
Yep.
And so when you create negative pressure by distracting or changing the joint position, what happens is that gas is just released.
Okay.
And so, for instance, if I crack my knuckle, I can just do it again in 20 minutes. It doesn't mean I'm like moving that joint in and out of place every 20 minutes. It just means that there's gas building up in between the joint surfaces. And then that gas is just being released through creating negative pressure in the joint. That's not to say that there aren't some benefits to adjusting joints if they need it. But in my opinion, I don't think that should be the cornerstone of treatment, because so you get some reduction in basically tense muscles in the area because there's nerves that go to the muscles that basically calm down when you adjust the area. There's local tissue relaxation, essentially, if you want to call it that. There's also increase in transient blood flow in the area, but it's not like a joint is stacked one way and then you did something wrong and it's twisted and then the chiropractor twists it back into place. That's just, to me, very silly. I think like it can be a component in care to improve someone's health, especially if it's a musculoskeletal complaint, like they have achy pain here or there. It can be part of it. I only adjusted maybe like 30% of my patients. And even when I did that, it was maybe 30 seconds of a 45-minute appointment. And so that's where I think
if somebody comes into you with, I feel like my back is out or I feel like my neck is out, And what do you know, because that happens to my wife. She'll go in the chiropractor and she feels way better after having gone.
Right. So I will say,
and all they do is all they do is do a 10-minute back crack thing, and she feels way better.
Right. So this is where I get the hate mail, right?
Sorry.
No, it's completely fine. It's completely fine. But and like I said, there are transient benefits. In my opinion, though, that's not a normal thing to like have bones slip out of place and then go back in. So that's about patient education for sure, which sometimes takes a long time. I realized for a while that some people just didn't want to hear it, and they've been doing that for 40 years and they love it. And to which I would just say to those people, like, look, we do a more comprehensive approach here. Like, I want to have you so you don't ever have to come in and feel this way. So I want to give you the tools to prevent this feeling from happening in the first place, which comes with movement education, movement modification, changes to your environment. And so and then I tell them, like, look, if this is what you're looking for is, once every couple of months, like, our treatments aren't like that. And so you might want to look at going to another clinician if that's what you're looking for. And so, or just educate the patient that it takes more work if you want the problem actually to be solved. And so this is another thing, like maybe that's the same thing that's ingrained in me from my parents, but I also try to help people figure out what they need to do to make the changes that they want. And so if they don't want that pain ever again, then there's likely a strategy that we can help them get to that removes that.
So what would a treatment session with you look like if I was coming to see you for 45 minutes, not that you're doing this now, but just to get an idea of what your philosophic, what the physical effect of your philosophic mindset around chiropractic is? Like, what would you do?
Yeah. So again, it just depends on the scope. So like if I was looking at a musculoskeletal case, which is what I would consider like sports medicine. Yeah. Right. It completely depends on the issue someone has. So if it's like a traumatic thing, like somebody is doing a CrossFit workout and snaps their shoulder back and they have a chronic issue or acute issue like that, acute trauma, then it's going to be a little bit different. Yeah. But
let's say like a more long-term thing.
Yeah, like it's more of a chronic thing. And so what happens then, I think the most important thing is exam and history. And so figuring out every possible way that this problem could be the way it is now. I think that this is the stuff that most people as clinicians, doesn't matter if they're PTs or chiros or massage therapists or MDs or anything, don't take the time to do. And so this is like I said, the very most important thing you can do is spend time in evaluation. And what happens is instead of most clinicians going into a room that's burning and is on fire and the patient has, let's say, physical pain, which would be the fire alarm going off, they think, what can I do to just smash this fire alarm to pieces? Like, I need to turn this fire alarm off. I need to treat the symptom. And so whether that's high blood cholesterol, right, high lipids, where MDs usually prescribe statins to reduce that, or shoulder pain, where most chiros and PTs just rub on someone's shoulder and adjust their back to make it feel better. Taking the time to really think like, okay, where's this fire at? How do I put it out? Okay, let's manage that first. And then now, like, while we're here, like, how did this get started in the first place? Is there an oven on in the other room and we're never turning it off? Is there a kid throwing matches in here from the other room? Like what is the electrical socket open and throwing sparks everywhere? Like, what is the actual problem here? And like, how can we now modify that to remove that and have a strategy of fireproofing the room and so that the alarm doesn't have to go off?
So you have to slow way down to be able to see things that are invisible to a lot of people, to what, because you're living your life and you're not even conscious of the things that you might be doing that are exacerbating the problem that is happening right in front of your eyes.
Yeah. And so a lot of times it can be very complex and very multifactorial. And so when you start stripping things down, it becomes like okay, well, for instance, like a common thing in San Francisco would be people working for their computers all the time. Yeah. Obviously, like 18-hour days. It's ridiculous.
That's only in San Francisco. They don't do it anywhere else. That's only San Francisco.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's just there.
That's right.
The frequency
I'm not
is
doing
the
it now.
there. Yeah.
I'm not doing it now for sure.
And so they go to the desk same way, but they have, like, for instance, a pen and a notebook and this all on one side, or they're always twisted to one angle.
Yeah.
And so I go like, we've gone over everything. Here's a movement analysis, whatever. I want you to take photos of you at your desk and just send them to me after this visit. Like 6 out of 10 times, maybe the person would be like 50 degrees twisted in their desk the whole day because they had the monitor set one way and the chair facing the other way.
Yep.
And their mid back hurt, but they're just twisted like 12 hours a day.
Yeah, right.
And so I go, oh, okay, well, here's the fix.
Or twist the other way.
Stop. Just sit normally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, they completely helped everything. And so it's just one of those things where like you never know how simple it is, but until you really, really dive deep and really figure out like every facet, like, okay, mid back pain could be caused from these 15 different things based upon this person's history. Let's start going through the most probable one and then stripping them out from that. And I don't think that a lot of time it's a lack of rubbing on a joint. It's a lack of rubbing tissues, right? And so sometimes what happens is people have errant movement patterns. And so that's when I would like see the person for longer periods of time. And so the treatment would go into more corrective exercise and things that they can do at home, but working with the people in office. And so that's where I think joining up therapies like soft tissue therapy, like adjustment of joints can help with getting better movement patterns. And so for instance, someone will come in, they would get stretched out and a little bit of massage to get blood flow going. And then we would do some soft tissue work to get even more blood flow and proprioception in the tissues, and then adjust them so that basically we have a clean slate to work with. And so when they start doing movement, the brain goes, oh, okay, we're going to do it just like how you want it now because everything's opened up, right? Yep. It's not because we're moving joints. It's not because the joints are in better alignment. It's just that we're increasing blood flow. We're getting better proprioception. We have a better way for the neurology to stick, if you want to put it that way.
Yep.
And so then we have to train movement patterns at that point and really work through, let's say if somebody has, like they're pushing weight overhead and overhead press, like in a gym or a CrossFit, and they're overextending their low back. They're arching their low back. Well, that can jam the joints up in their pelvis and they get low back pain from that. And so working then at that point of like keeping the rib cage down while pushing overhead and doing a progression of drills to fix that problem is going to fix it, not me adjusting their back 2 times a week for the next 3 years.
Right.
Like they didn't have a like adjustment deficiency. They didn't have like a soft tissue work deficiency, right? It was a movement pattern problem. And so correcting that is the treatment, not just treating the symptom of back pain.
Yep.
And so a little bit different than how most people do it, which is unfortunate because, I mean, from what I saw, it got people better really, really quickly. A lot of times people didn't need the treatment that they thought they needed. So it saved a lot of money for them. There was always my colleagues who were like, well, aren't you worried about not having like patient visits and like not seeing them, 12 times in the next 3 months? I'm like, no, because then what happens is they get better really quickly. And then they tell 2 friends. Yep. And then I do the same thing with them and they tell 4 friends. Yep. And then everybody wins. Like,
exactly.
That was my philosophy a little bit differently than some chiros. Some, like, they're not all bad. So I'm not putting blanket statements out there, but it's a little bit different.
I used to have that philosophy as a trainer. Like I would see trainers who were really not, what I would say is they were really not committed to this real long-term success of their clients. They wanted clients forever. They wanted somebody that's been paying them $100 a session, 4 times a week for the last 5 years to keep going for the next 15 years. So because true success for me as a trainer would be to get to the point where a person is responsible, is awake and alert and knows what to do, knows what their issues are, knows how to train, and can do it on their own. They may continue with me because they like it. They may continue with me because, but it's a free choice rather than I need you because I don't know what to do otherwise. And because, the babysitting routine of the personal trainer was one that drove me nuts. And I always wanted to make sure that my purpose was to help them help themselves. And success to me was quote unquote graduation from training with me. Like I wanted my clients to graduate and move on if they chose to.
Yeah. And I think this is actually, it's not just a trainer, it's just a healthcare type of thing. This goes through all professions essentially. It's like, do you want the person to actually figure stuff out and you actually want to help them, or do you want them to be dependent on you?
Yes.
Yep. And at the top end, I think of every profession, you're going to have a small minority who do it the right way, which is the hard way. And that's why people don't like to do it. It's like it takes a lot of work and a lot of brain power to go through proper evaluation and thinking of like, how do I get to this individual person what they need with all the information that I've acquired over the past however many years. Like it's a lot of work to, one, acquire that information and knowledge, and then two, apply it like in real time and do it for the best interest of the person and not for your own interests. It's like it's a very difficult thing to do, actually.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had to work on it, and I'm still working on it now. But it's like the constant work and evolution that it takes to really always be at that end is super tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I would agree. That's great. Yeah. And I think you're right. I never really thought about that before. Like, whether you're talking about a plumber or anybody that's in the service business, an
auto mechanic,
a lawyer, does an auto mechanic want you to be dependent on them to change their oil every 3,000 miles, or do they want to show you how to change their own oil? Now I know how to change my own oil, but I choose not to do it today. Like it's not easy for me to jack, but there was a time when that was really fun. I used to jack my truck up, and I used to, change my oil and do my filters and do, it was actually a fun little project that I would do, once every 3 months or 4 months.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, in every
I never really thought about that. That's really cool. Yeah. It's really interesting. So then how did you take what you're not practicing today, right? You're running the nutritional supplement, your keto business now. How did you make that leap into that business? And I know you said it at the beginning of the podcast, this is never something that you thought you'd be doing. How did that occur, and what happened?
Well, so what happened is like I said, I did a lot of sports medicine, then I switched to more functional medicine. So that, I mean, it looked essentially the same, except instead of looking at musculoskeletal system, we were looking at more internal systems. So same type of evaluation, as far as like really digging to the root cause, doing more like blood work in labs instead of doing movement assessments. And then instead of doing functional training after that, doing more nutritional training, things like that. It's the same process. It's just a little bit different. And so what I noticed with all of these problems, whether problems are external and in musculoskeletal in nature or they were internal, root cause was always nutrition, or like the thing that made it better quicker, always nutrition. And so if somebody had terrible nutrition, they're never going to heal their joints. They're never going to heal strained tissues. They're never going to heal their gut. They're never going to fix their diabetes. They're never going to help their disease process at all. And so working with that and be like, okay, so the real problem I need to fix here is actually nutrition. Okay, well, how do we do that? And so starting to work from that was kind of the point where I started doing these other businesses. I was thinking like, this is not a scalable way for me to help people if I'm just seeing essentially like 7 to 10 people a day, which was kind of what the average was at a functional medicine clip. Like you can't spend less than 45 minutes an hour with a person and actually get them better. And so that limits your time. So, okay, if my impact right now is limited to 10 people a day, I can work 5-6 days a week. And that looks like, a handful of people at the end of my career, end of my life. Like, how can I do a little bit different job than that? And so I had a little bit of an audience as I had written some articles for patients to read on the internet. And then that just kind of built a following on its own, maybe 2-3 years into practice. And so I was like, okay, well, how do we do this, kind of parlaying that? And so I noticed people reaching for certain supplement products to fill gaps. And I was not a big fan of that. And so there was nothing to really recommend to my patients who were on the go, super busy. I wanted a healthy solution for, let's say, more protein or collagen or greens or whatever. And so that was when I started my first company kind of in this space, which is called Quip now. It was PureWOD initially. And what the whole thing with that was to basically provide people with the solution that they're looking for in a product for convenience for food that didn't exist already. And so, for instance, like one of the first products was a grass-fed beef protein with no fillers or any weird stuff in it. So the supplement industry is super shady, and 98% of products that are out there, like this is an actual study thing, like I think it's literally 98%, have unmarked ingredients in their product that they don't put on the label because you don't have to, since it's self-regulated products, because the FDA doesn't check anything. And so I wanted to give people something like that. And then from that, once they get the product, then teach them about nutrition and the importance of it on the back end. And so what I found is that to my website, everybody was going there for like a self-fulfilling thing of like people who already knew grass-fed meat was good for you were like going there to just read more about it. It wasn't changing people's minds or creating any kind of behavior shifts. But in my opinion, getting people supplements like a grass-fed beef protein, they're already kind of on the edge of wanting it, but not probably making all the right decisions already. And so once they show a little bit of desire to change, that's where I wanted to get them, and then provide them all the education that they needed to make actual behavior changes and get them on that path of making kind of this momentum of health shift to better nutrition, better lifestyle. And so that's kind of been the model of all of these companies that have launched now, which have just been in different spaces. And so Equip is kind of whole food. So we have beef protein, sweet potato powder, greens powder, collagen, things like that, turmeric. And then Perfect Keto is the one that I spend most of my time on now, just because I think it has, there's so much misinformation out there right now. Like paleo is like super good. I trust a lot of people in the space. They're doing a good job. But the ketogenic diet is growing so rapidly, and not a lot of people really understand it, that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so my main goal with that is to be able to cut through all the noise in a science-based way, and not trying to promise people all these claims about nutrition that don't exist. And so that's the biggest thing about trends, is that they're good for a reason. Like ketogenic diet has a lot of great things about it. However, in that, because a lot of people are trying to sell people fat loss supplements, which is terrifying, because that's not how it works. As we talked earlier, like you need to actually do the work and do it in a very individualistic manner to get the results you need. And so doing that, what I want to do is make the ketogenic diet accessible with stuff like this, without giving any kind of BS marketing or selling people on stuff that doesn't actually exist. And so last year, as these companies kept growing, and then managing 4 of the 6 clinics, there's just no way I could maintain that. And looking at kind of where my impact was, where I can, I don't have to be selling these things one-on-one 10 times a day and then have to stop. And so I can be educating people through, every second of the day all over the world, and focusing on that just made way more sense to me than doing an in-person type of treatment model. And so I switched that at last July was cause it was kind of like when I left, and then I started, I did some work still one-on-one with people, but the transition was hard. It was a big identity shift. Going from a clinician and working with people one-on-one and like seeing how it's happening right away, to shifting to kind of this like behind the scenes, kind of behind the screen type of person. And so that was a huge shift, and it took me a while to like be comfortable with it. But now that we are where we're at, like I'm glad that I did it, because we're making, so much change now compared to what we were doing before. I mean, we just get flooded now with people with success stories that like, it's crazy. I can't believe like how many people have been able to either with our stuff, or just the information we have, or other people's information, change and have positive results from just a ketogenic diet. And this is just one of a bunch of different projects that I'm working on. So like way more impact now, which was fantastic. And it's like, not to mention, I was getting burned out hard doing it the way I was doing it.
Yep.
And now it's a much more sustainable life for me, where now I can do this for much longer. I think in a more effective way throughout the day. It fits my personality way better than having to be that one-on-one person all day, every day.
How do you keep feeling like you're actually affecting change through the, principles and practices that you developed as a strategy for being a chiropractor or being a health practitioner? How do you feel like do you feel like you're continuing to do that via, your product line or another way?
Yeah, I think it's just going wider now instead of deeper. So like obviously in a one-to-one basis, you can get way more stuff done for an individual, but on a wider basis, you can help way more people start digging in and kind of catching on.
But how do you do that through selling products?
Yeah. So asking a lot of questions.
Asking
questions on what, to the people that have used our stuff before, or like I said, we have a huge Facebook group, go to conferences like PaleoFX, asking all these people, like, what do you have problems with? Like, what is the resistance to change that you have with nutrition? The Perfect Keto site, we have, I think like hundreds of articles now and guides and all this different stuff. So like, to me, the information is the most important part.
So you're engaging with your customers. You're like,
it's the most important thing that we do and that I do. It's like that, because that is what helps me identify, okay, we have 500 problems to solve right now that people have. What is the most important that I think would like create the most amount of change? Let's do that. Okay. Now next, let's do the next one. And like keep doing that over and over and over again while listening to people and get continuous feedback about like what's holding them back from making positive changes. And then going back to the drawing board and coming up with creative solutions on how to get that done, I think is how I think I'm doing that now. Which is exactly kind of what I was doing with my practice. Say like I was seeing people with shoulder pain all the time. Okay, now I have to get way better at shoulder assessment and shoulder recovery. But now it's just nutrition on a larger scale. Yeah. So okay, you guys want to do a ketogenic diet? Why? What's stopping you there? How are we going to improve that? Okay, well we could actually do it through launching this product, which should help people in this way, for instance.
Right.
And so it's all about just asking questions, and I would say never being complacent.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a unique thing that you are engaging the way you are, I think, with your brand, with your people that buy your product. Because, a lot of times you'll buy a product and you can't even figure out who owns the company. Like like there isn't a personality or a person behind it. It's a thing that you buy based on marketing or whatever the look and feel of their website or whatever you buy it for.
And I think this is where you can kind of make the delineation that are people into it for money, or are they into it to like help people?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll go like into our Instagram, into our Facebook page, into our Facebook group, and like look up people's shipping information when it's like, I did this, like, I remember when I was in Hungary in Budapest a month or two ago, and I couldn't sleep, and I was like responding to customer problems on our Instagram page, while like doing all the customer service myself, which like maybe not a good use of my time, but like I care, and I want to help these people. It's not like we're just doing it to take advantage of a trend to make money and to exploit these people.
Right.
Completely different thing. And like, this is what fires me up too, is like, I think that chiros, PTs, MDs, people who have all the training and like clinical experience should be the ones making these companies that provide changes in people's health. Like, I think people can generally do that and they have a lot of change, but the fact that there aren't more clinicians and people with that knowledge base, like going out and helping more people in that way and creating these products, is kind of a shame. When it's just some guy with a marketing degree who knows that he'll be able to sell X amount of units on Amazon per month if he makes the margin a certain way, or the marketing this or that way. I think it's a shame. So that fires me up. That like keeps me motivated about all this stuff. And yeah, it's just, our margins are not like they would be if we ran it for pure profit. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
It's not a company that like I look at, and this is where people get a confusion between, oh, well, you have a supplement or a product company, therefore you're doing this just to make money. It's like, right. Well, we have a company, like, people don't understand that revenue is a tool that we can use and a resource to then do more things to help more people.
Yeah, right. Totally.
So like, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to launch new products and like start coming up with these food products and invest in like 6 content writers and all the research that we have and all the team that we have to build all the information that we have to help all the people that we do.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, and I have no problem saying this, like, I've taken $0 of all of these companies. Like, I don't pay myself at all. And this is something that ask any other person who owns any companies like these what their salary is. I think it would be very, very different.
How do you make a living for yourself?
I mean, I live a pretty simple life, and the chiro business was, did pretty well for a while. So I can coast off of that, but it's not something like, again, like, I don't need things. I am completely content living the life I have, like, with very few things. And so like, that's just not important to me. Like, I don't need to like keep living this hedonic adaptation life of like needing more and more stuff and more things.
Yep.
It's like, my expenses are just not that much.
You're not married, are you?
No.
Just wait.
Yeah. And no kids either. So
yeah,
I'm lucky in that regard
right now,
for expenses.
Absolutely. I'm a bit envious of that. That's a really cool. It's a cool place to be.
every penny of our revenue goes into investing in the products and investing in the company to make it more impactful for more people, and not to pay out shareholders and not to pay out investors because we've never raised money, and not to pay me. I don't need it for any reason. Like, this is just what like pumps me up and drives me is having other people be able to have the same type of change that I had when I was younger.
Yep.
Which is like, oh, I can actually take control of this with all this information and all these products. Like, how awesome is this? Like, that's the shift I want to have in people, like day in and day out.
What is one thing you might tell someone, one or two or three things, that you might tell someone who's never going to go see somebody like you, who's never going to engage with you again? They're going to hear this podcast and they're going to be like, I'm inspired by this. I want to take some action. What actions would you tell them to take in their life to make an improvement based on your experience in your life?
Oh, the answer to this is going to be it depends.
It depends. Sorry, you can't ask any more questions.
Well, I suppose like what is your goal? Like
improve their health, improve their well-being.
So one would be clarify your goals. And so what happens is people try to lose fat and gain muscle and not spend money, but yet eat the highest quality food and have lowest inflammation. They want everything at once.
Yep.
Like prioritize and get clarity around what your goals are. Cause then your decision-making will be super easy.
Okay.
Does it fit this goal? Yes or no? Okay. Then you hit that goal and you go to the next one. Like that's as simple as it needs to be. Two would be don't overcomplicate things. In my opinion, like it just seems pretty basic. Like move often in varied ways, sleep a good amount and a high quality, like don't be stressed out and manage your stress, and eat real food. Like that's as simple as it needs to be to be super healthy.
Right.
And then I would say point number 3 to say that what the most important thing is on all that is to eat real food. Like it is just a must. I don't care what type of diet plan you're doing. I don't care if you're counting your macros. Yep. I don't care if you're doing ketogenic diet or paleo or whatever, like food quality is paramount. And without that, you're going to fall apart at some point. So like, that's another thing that we are really focused on in ketogenic diet. That's misinformation is people say like, oh, well, I ate a cheese stick wrapped in bacon, deep fried in butter, and then like topped that with cheese whiz, and it didn't spike my blood sugar, so it's keto and it's healthy. It's like, no. Right. Like even more important when you're eating only fat is the quality of that fat.
Yep.
And so you really need to pull back and evaluate, am I eating real food that grows? Will this thing spoil if I leave it on my counter for 2 weeks, or like will I be able to eat it in 3 years from now? That is not food.
Right.
And like that is the single biggest change, in my opinion, that somebody can make for their health. Eat real food. So I'd say those things. Prioritize your goals.
And make them specific. Yeah. Make the goals specific. Yep.
Don't overthink things. It's not that complex. And then just always food. eat real stuff. Yeah.
I love it. How do you today keep your own sword sharp? Like what are you doing yourself personally to stay inspired, stay sharp, stay focused, like you said, you mentioned you were doing gymnastics program. What kinds of things do you do on a daily basis to do that?
Yeah, basically just try to call myself out as much as possible. Of like, whenever I think I know something, there's a problem.
Did you say call yourself out?
Yeah. Like call myself out and stuff. It's like whenever I think like I know something for sure, I'm like, okay, time to put pause the brakes here and like reevaluate.
Warning.
Yeah. Because like I don't think that anybody can be so sure about anything. And like, for example, like I said, protein intake was one of my biggest things. And so like seeing where I feel very strong beliefs in routinely challenging those things to see if, it's just this hierarchy that I've built in my head and this heuristic of like, oh, if I'm a male and I work out, I need to eat 200 grams of protein a day.
Yeah, right.
Like, is that true?
Right.
Is that really the case? And is that really the case for me? And so I realized that rationing down to like 75 grams of protein a day, for me, I actually feel way better, can eat way less, and maintain the same body composition. Like I was just with lower inflammation markers. Like I was just overeating protein. I might experiment with like a mostly vegetarian diet soon. Let's see how that goes. I don't know. I thought it was really stupid for a long period of time.
What are the kinds of experiments you're running right now?
Fasting was a big one that I put on my website, which I thought fasting was ridiculously stupid for a long time. And then I did it and I challenged my assumptions and I learned from it. And I realized that it's actually really, really powerful for a lot of different reasons.
When you say fasting, do you mean like a 7-day fast, a 3-day fast?
Like 4 to 7, 10 day, like a water fast, or just with ketones. And yeah, I actually have like every positive marker from that's published on my website, like inflammation got better, like lipid panel got better. I gained lean tissue mass. I lost fat mass. Like, I was like, huh.
What's the longest fast you've done, and how often do you do it?
7 days. I do now like once a month, 3 days or so, and then once a quarter, like 7 days.
Yep. Wow.
Pretty often, 24 hours or so. Like anytime I travel, I don't eat because I think the food is just atrocious, and so. For instance, tonight I leave, like I ate a salad with smoked salmon and eggs on it with avocado at like, times right now, 4. And I ate that at 1. And now I'm not going to eat because I get on a 12-hour plane ride to New York. And then so when I land there, I might go get something if I'm hungry. If not, I might just take a nap. But I'm not going to eat at any point from after I had that salad to whenever tomorrow.
So it'll
probably
fast.
It'll probably look like a 24-hour fast. Yeah, it's like I travel a lot, and so whenever I travel, it's like that. So I went from Australia to Tennessee last week, and then that was a pretty much a 36-hour fast. Tennessee here is the same type of thing, and so yeah, the 24 to 36-hour fast for me are really common, and being able to do a 7-day fast, that's no problem now. Like I think it's more of a psychological barrier for people to look at food and be like, oh man, I cannot go without food for the next 42 minutes.
Yep.
Like, or if food's here, I have to eat it.
Right.
And it's being comfortable to be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I might be a little hungry, but I've seen this before. No problem. I'll get through it.
Yep.
It's a huge shift. And so now I'm just like completely content with it. And it makes it so much easier. It makes decision, like we talked about earlier, making decisions. Instead of being at a new airport every time, you'd be like, oh, does this lounge have this perfect food for me, or like can I get this perfect food here or there? Like I have to make these decisions. Like the decision to not eat is a very easy one that I can make wherever.
Yeah, right. Does if you get hungry during one of these 24 36-hour travel fasts, do you keep something with you just in case, or do you not even, it doesn't even register anymore? Yeah,
so I have a little bit of a travel kind of pack that I make myself now. So like it'll essentially be the ketones that we have, and then if it's a really long flight, I'll take some fat fudge with me, which is a local gal,
Mary Shanita. Oh yeah, she's fantastic. She's been awesome on the podcast. She's fantastic. Love her. I love fat fudge.
Yeah, so I've been trying to get her to make a matcha flavored one. So maybe this show someone will point out to her that she should be on that. But anyway, yeah, so that's something that I take with. But other than that, like just ketones will get me through any type of hunger. Otherwise, I just use like meditation techniques and be like, okay, I'm hungry, and that's what that is, and not have to stress about it, and realize that I'm not going to die, so I don't have this stress response from it like most people do. I think it's huge. So it's just I just plan on, okay, I'm going to be traveling equals I'm going to be fasting. Another thing too, actually, as far as experiment, so I said that I was eating too much protein, so you was going to eat less protein. I don't know if you've had Ryan Munzie on the podcast, or you know of him.
It's funny. I just met him personally for the first time. He went to the Bulletproof conference, and he was in town for that. And I missed it, but I connected with him the following week, and he's going to be. I'm going to be on his. He's going to be on mine. It'll be good. Yeah.
So he's doing right now a carnivore diet test, which is eating only meat.
Wow. And
so now that I'm like, oh yeah.
Too much protein.
Yeah. You don't need to eat that much protein. And I was like, well. What would actually happen if I ate like only animal products? And so there's another thing, like he's doing that. I'm like, well, rather than be rigid and be like, no, man, like you got to be eating like only plants and like only this stuff. Be like, oh, well, I guess I never tried that end of the spectrum.
Why is he doing it? What's his purpose?
I think just curiosity, in that there's so much, as with nutrition, it gets pretty dogmatic pretty damn quickly. And so there's so many sides of the camp, and then nobody does the work to figure out how they respond to stuff. And so people sit on their high horse and say like, no, this is the best, or this is the best, but they haven't really done the work to see if it truly is bad or good.
For that, and not only universally, but just for them. I mean, and I always tell people, look, you're the N=1 experiment. You're exactly. Your own human experiment. So, have fun with it. Enjoy it.
And I actually think that doing a carnivore diet is possible to do in like moderate to low protein. I think eating a lot of organ meats, a lot of collagen products, and a lot of fat from the animals, I think you could do it keto and pretty low protein.
Wow.
Actually.
That's interesting.
No. So, I mean, it's just like people think I'm just going to eat chicken breast only. Like that's the thing too. That's
probably the last thing you're going to eat. I mean,
an animal has more than muscle meat. I don't know if people like are aware of that. Like there's way more stuff to eat on an animal that they provide that's way more nutritious than just the muscle meat. And so, yeah, I might spec that out. I just put a post on my Instagram. Oh, yeah. So people can, it's probably won't air, but yeah, the new poll feature.
Yeah. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah.
I posted it on my Instagram. And right now, 73% of people said, yes, I should do a carnivore diet.
It just happened right now. Like you just put it up right now.
Well, 6 hours ago. And so
gotcha.
It looks like the overwhelming majority says I should do it. So I gotta please the people on Instagram, I think. So I might be doing that soon too. So
before I forget, speaking of Instagram, I'm gonna take a screenshot of us talking right now because I always forget to do this. And I figured if I'm on the podcast, I might as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that too here. Good call.
I'll do it right now because I'd like to tell people we're here. You got to look at the camera though, dude. Come on. There we go. All right, perfect. Keeping your sword sharp.
Reading a lot too.
Well, okay, that was another question. Okay, so books. Now, I'm a humongous book reader and book listener, and I think questions like this are interesting. If there were 1, 2, 3 books, kind of like my question before about 3 things that you would recommend someone do, what would be 3 books you would recommend somebody to read or that have had a big impact on you and the way you see things?
Oh, well, the answer to that.
It depends. Jesus Christ. You should write a book called It Depends. I'm
working on it, actually. It's just, I just put...
Not to be confused with the adult diapers.
Yeah. So maybe less sponsors, who knows? I think Sapiens and Homo Deus are kind of a combo.
Yep.
To me, there should be required reading in everyone's... every fourth... Maybe 4th grade's a little too early, but like every 9th grade classroom, that should be like required reading, in my opinion. So
my mom got me going on Sapiens, and I read half of it. And because I've had so many guests on my podcast with books, I haven't been able to finish it because I want to read the books before I have people on the podcast. And then she read, what's it called? Homo Deus?
Yeah.
Yeah. She read Homo Deus and she goes, oh my God, Homo Deus. If you thought Sapiens was good, like Homo Deus is the next level. You have to read Homo Deus. So I'm very excited about both, but they're on pause.
Yeah, that back-to-back tandem is, I think, just paramount. And then at that point, I think I've kind of gone through the phase through the last like 5-6 years of reading all like the self-help type business books, and I think that you have to go like if you're curious and you're driven, you want to do stuff, like sometimes you have to go through that phase of like trashy nonfiction. But like now I'm into reading like actual like textbooks about physics and, for instance, like philosophy books and books about either Stoicism or Buddhism or something like this.
Yep.
And I'm getting way more of those foundational texts now than I would have like a book that basically can be a blog post.
Right.
And so I'm starting to like realize after I try to read a book a week, and like I can't look back after a week and be like, man, I could have read that in a sentence, which is like what a lot of the books I used to read were like. After I went through about 100 of them, I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Just do the thing. And like, it's always like whatever the title is, you basically just like read the title and internalize whatever the book is. And so I would say if people want to know about nutrition, read a biochemistry textbook and just go through it. That you'll learn more in that than you will about anybody trying to basically sell you something with a book.
Yep.
Go to the basics is what I would recommend.
Right.
Like if you want to learn about a subject, instead of like picking up whatever is on the New York Times bestseller list in that subject, go to the root of that subject and read the textbook that's been around for 50 years, or read the text that's been around for forever. So I'm reading this book right now called Total Freedom by Jiddu Krishnamurti, which is like one of the hardest books I've ever read. It's about kind of like philosophy and mind and stuff. And this guy's teachings from like he's dead now, I think, but of the last 100 years. And so that stuff doesn't really change. Like some stuff doesn't change. Some stuff like has to be populated to the top of a bestsellers list to sell books. And so that's where I think that, kind of a mix between new stuff and old stuff can be super important.
Right. That's really interesting advice. I hadn't really even thought of that. The last time I read a textbook was the last time I took it was not an undergrad course. It wasn't a grad course. It was just a course in nutrition.
Yeah, I mean,
it took
a long time to get through it.
Physiology. It was Catch and Catch. It's a kind of a classic old physiology textbook. But go through the exercises too. Like at the end of every chapter, there's self-guided exercises in them. Like you can get a really, really great education just by reading textbooks by yourself. And like it sounds super dry, and it is, but it's like, are you reading it for pleasure and enjoyment, which is fine, like read fiction. Yep.
Or if you're reading nonfiction, it's like you're trying to learn something or get something out of it. You're actually go to the source.
Yeah.
Same thing with, I found 2 books essentially that replace every single like business and self-help book, or like online business or entrepreneurial stuff. And so those would be the Startup Owner's Manual and Scaling Up. And so like if anybody wants to do like online business or want to be an entrepreneur, you don't need to read all these top 100 books about how to be great and how to hustle and how all this other bullshit. Like just read, like, and these 2 are like textbooks. They're crazy. Like they're very dense, but all the information you'd ever need.
The Startup Owner's Manual, and what was the other one?
Scaling Up.
I've never heard of either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it helped me tremendously. Like tremendously. More than any like of those books combined times 10.
Wow.
And so very tactical stuff that you can actually apply, very textbook type of fashion. But I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing now without those 2 books.
Wow, that's very cool. That's a huge endorsement. That's really cool.
Do I get Amazon link fees or something?
Do you do that? Do you do that stuff?
No.
Yeah, we don't either. We've talked about doing it, and it's a lot. It's easy to do. It's easy to say you're going to do, but it's just work. It's more work, and I've had to get really good at getting very specific about, hey, what's our mission? What's in alignment for us? What are we trying to do in the Whole Life Challenge? And that's where I'm going to put my focus and my energy. And if I put too many other things in the way, which I could, it's very easy to put in. If I was to write a blog post and say, okay, well, I'm going to link Scaling Up to the Amazon thing, and I'm going to earn some money on that, and then I got to track the codes, and I got to track the money, and I got to. It's a job to do that.
Yep. Yeah. So like, does it get in the way of like creativity and helping people and doing what you want to do, or does it help that thing? It's kind of how I think about task completion now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I know we've been trying to do this. Last time we tried to do it, we were going to do it in person, and you were down for Bulletproof, and you weren't feeling well. And I was like,
I was dying. I went for that. I went for 1/2 day of Bulletproof, and I went to do you see like the little IVs and stuff?
I didn't go. I wasn't at Bulletproof.
Oh, okay. So they had this like little tent thing where they were doing like IV injections.
Like a health shot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got like everything possible there, and like by midday, I lost my voice. I'm like, wow, I'm done. Like I need to go take care of myself.
Right.
It had been too much traveling.
Yep.
There was a point like no matter how healthy you try to be, your body just can't handle the onslaught sometimes. So like you just need to know, and you just need to back up and like
reset,
get some rest.
Yep.
That's
totally.
That's probably the main problem that I'm dealing with now is. Kind of goes back to what you were saying, that there's so much potential of stuff to do, and like I get so fired up about this stuff, but I have to realize that I am not a machine, that I am in fact a human, and that I need to like slow down and take care of myself and allow a lot of rest and recovery, and not try to push so hard every single day, which can be pretty difficult actually. And so that's kind of the big one that I'm working on now myself. Like I know it's a problem, and I know I'm trying to fix it, and so baking in more kind of detached zones. And so like in Nashville in between Australia and here, and went 4 days with my phone and my computer completely off.
Wow. Nice.
It's fantastic.
What'd you do? I mean, obviously you're not working, or maybe you were. Were you reading? Were you?
I was reading a lot and planning stuff, just writing a notebook, hanging out with friends.
Cool.
Kind of typical stuff.
Nashville's a great place.
Yeah, it's perfect for that actually. And so I already planned one as well for the end of the year. So I'm going to be in Amsterdam, doing the same thing for 5 days. And so like putting those in strategically now for me is kind of a strategy to see if I can help kind of buffer my insane mentality of getting things like done and doing stuff.
Yep.
So I was doing too much of that, got super sick. So it still can happen, even the guys who call themselves nutrition people. So
well, I'm glad you're well now. And
yeah, me too.
I'm glad we got to do this, and I get to see you on Zoom chat, and everybody else gets a chance to gain some, insight and wisdom, and really great stuff. So I really appreciate your insight and you sharing your life. Really, I mean, it's.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd love to. We'll get to get together when I'm in Venice. Hopefully, healthy this time.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And knock on another one.
That'd be great. How do people find you if they have questions for you? If they want to send you hate mail, and because I'm sure you're really looking forward to that. Where do you lurk? Where do you hang out?
I very rarely am on anything but Instagram. So if Instagram people want to follow me or engage or hang out on there, it's at Dr. Anthony Gustin, Gustin, and then same for my website. I go in spurts of posting tons of content, but if they want to contact me through a web form there, they can.
Which website do you mean? Because you have
it's just dranthonygustin.com.
Oh, your personal website. Got it.
Yeah. So this is kind of home base where people can like all those emails go directly to me.
Yep.
So as I'm busy, it might take me like a week or two to get to them, but I'll get to every single one of them. And then for Perfect Keto, it's just at Perfect Ketones for Instagram, and then perfectketo.com for all the resources that we're putting out there. And I can give you links to anything else if you want to put that in there, but those are the main places.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thanks again. And I look forward to getting together in person with you next time you're in town, because that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. Having me on, man. Really had a good time.